we've now got Jonathan on screen. I think there was some technical problems just getting him on screen, and he's the first substantive item. Hello, Jonathan.
Good morning, Councillor.
So welcome to the meeting, everyone. Do we have any apologies for absence?
Yes, Chair. Apologies received from Councillor Mackey and Councillor Foster.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome Philip Bateman back, who's had some troubles over the health troubles over the last few months, and it's great to see you again, Philip.
Thank you.
And we are quorate. Thank you for attending. Are there any declarations of interest on this agenda? I'll record that as none. Chairman's remarks. I think the only thing I need to say is that theoretically, a paper will go to the board in 2 weeks, roughly 2 weeks' time, on the structure of scrutiny for the future. That was the expectation. And I haven't seen what the recommendations are yet, but this was around the government recommendations, guidelines are that there should be only one scrutiny committee, and we've got two. And they were looking at what that should comprise in the future, particularly should transport be separate. I have no idea where that's going to end up, but I suspect it's going to be difficult to duck the government guidelines. Would be my guess. So we'll see where that ends up. And we have got some additional meetings in September. For some of you, I know that's going to be a challenge. They are online because you're busy working and various other things. But I think that's come about because the officers actually find us useful. And they want to bounce things off us, which I think is a credit to everyone. And it's been getting that way for, I think, the last 3 years. So I would see that as a compliment rather than as a pain, despite the fact it does involve us in some extra work. So minutes of the 7th of July. Is everybody comfortable with those minutes? Yeah. Thank you for that. And so if we could move on to the West Midlands Growth Plan, which was this. You all got a card copy, I hope. The main purpose of this agenda item is to check that you understand it.
That's good.
Not that we are going to comment on it because clearly it's finished. Although I do have a suggestion that we might wish to actively support part of it, to support the mayor and the officers. But the purpose is that we fully understand this. So when we do work over the next 1-2 years, it's against this as one of the backdrops. So that's the purpose. So Jonathan, you're on, sir.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning, councillors. Very sorry that I'm not able to be there with you in person today due to a couple of reasons, but yeah, I'm very sorry for that. But to build on where you started, Chair, so the presentation and, well, the overview we'll give today of the West Midlands Growth Plan. The context is as follows. So for a number of years, the Combined Authority has had a number of different types of economic strategy, including the Strategic Economic Plan that was one of the first overarching strategies the region had, our Local Industrial Strategy, and then our Plan for Growth. I think as a region, we all recognise that those things were helpful and gave a partial overview of what the region's plan is and needed to be. But our leaders and chief execs felt that there was something missing. There was something that wasn't quite bringing the whole totality of what the region is doing and what it needed to do to increase residents' living standards. We didn't have a central guiding document that provided that overview. So about a year and a half ago, we embarked on a programme of work called West Midlands Futures. At the last overview and scrutiny committee meeting, we gave an overview of the West Midlands Futures Green Paper and what it was. And the West Midlands Growth Plan is one of the things that has come out of that 18-month process. So to give you a kind of quick reminder, the West Midlands Green Paper set out to say we do have some extremely strong economic foundations as a region. We know we have a number of challenges, and we want to try and build up a consensus across the region on what needs to change in order to increase residents' living standards. And the growth plan is a long document that sets out what we're trying to achieve, how we think we are going to achieve it, what we need in order to do so, and what some of the actions are that we as a region will start to take over the next 3 years. So the headline vision and ambitions of the growth plan are centrally to improve the rate of economic growth in the region to around 2% a year. If we were to do that over the next 10 years, that would translate into a higher rate of productivity per working person of around £8,600 over that period. So that is that involves accelerating the rate of growth that the region is already on. But if we could do that, that would make for a quite substantial increase in the living standards of the region's working population. Alongside that, the growth plan also sets a vision and goal to increase the rate of employment by 5%, which would translate into around 93,000 people extra in work. That is in line with where the government wants to take the country's employment rate nationally. And also, we have made it clear that the type of growth that we want to see needs to be compatible with net zero as well, and also deliver some of the key infrastructures our places need, including housing, digital infrastructure, energy and transport and the like. So there are some very grand, but we think credible ambitions at the centre of the growth plan that if we as a region collectively get behind them and get the support we need from central government, that we do think they are achievable. Importantly, because the ambitions in the growth plan, they are based on our understanding of what regions that are like the West Midlands have managed to achieve. So we often get compared to London, but what we have invested in is an understanding of the regions that the West Midlands is most similar to. And there's a piece of research published online that seeks to get into that. So we think a 2% growth rate is a big stretch, but it is found and plausible based on, as I say, regions that are similar to us. So the growth plan itself is broken down into 4 key sections substantively. One is around our people, and that relates to what we would traditionally think of as skills and employment support levers. But given the evidence and the conversations that we've had as part of the Green Paper consultation, we have kind of broadened that out to include early years, into health, into disability, into ensuring the outcomes between the region's different kind of ethnic groups, between white and non-white, where we know there are some real inequalities there, and right through into youth employment and such like, that we are defining in quite a broad but honest way about the nature of the challenges and opportunities that we have. Underpinning that, as we've discussed last time, if the region can get that right, it has a real advantage over other parts of the country. We have the second largest, second fastest growing, second youngest, second most diverse population of any city region. So if we can get the drivers right of how we can help our people flourish, then we do think we have a real economic advantage there that we're sitting on as the West Midlands. The second theme is around the businesses of the region. So we have some really strong innovation assets. We know the private sector is investing a lot in private sector research and development. There are some large scale investments happening across the region, and we've got some really distinctive clusters and innovators that are kind of really leading the charge nationally. So the growth plan sets out what we think needs to happen in order to help those types of businesses go further and faster. But it's not just about what happens in the the shiny laboratories and in the city centres. We are also saying improving the business leaders, the support they receive and their ability to invest and grow. That is as important to the West Midlands as well, as is the nature of the work in the everyday economy that we touched on a little bit last time that I'll come back to. So when we talk about business, we mean, yes, we need to kind of grow and take further the innovation assets that we already have, but the growth plan is also a plan for the everyday economy and for business leaders across the region. The Mayor is really keen that we define growth as being for everyone, and that's why we've made sure there's a really important section in there on the everyday economy. When it comes to places, we kind of recognise that when we talk about place, we are not just talking about the kind of Birmingham city centre model, as important as it is in being, around 40% of our population jobs in GVA, but this is a plan for all parts of the West Midlands, the Black Country, Coventry, and also the places that we're linked to outside of that as well. So when we talk about place in the growth plan, we mean we need to support the construction of housing, transport, the ability to install energy infrastructure that we need, and some of the work on nature and adaptation as well that colleagues will get onto a bit later on in the agenda as well. And then as part of that, we have some really large investment opportunities that are gaining momentum across the region. And we name some of those in the growth plan, but we will publish more details about them when it comes to the Regional Investment Summit that is taking place in the region in October. So there is a really exciting agenda there, and we've been working very, very closely with local authority colleagues on the development of place-based strategies that will give more definition to what that means at a local level as well. And then the final section is about the region's story. So this basically means the region has a lot to shout about. We have a lot of strong foundations. There is a lot of exciting work underway. Part of how we will get investors, students, government and other regions to take notice of the West Midlands is by us telling a clear and confident story about where we're heading in the future. So that is not traditionally part of economic strategies, but we think if we are to really kind of make the most of our region, we need a shared and consistent narrative around where the West Midlands are going and what our strengths are. And the growth plan is the start of that. You know, we were delighted that Stephen Knight wrote the prologue to it, which kind of really grounds where the West Midlands is today in its history and in its diversity, but we need to keep going and telling the story about where we're going. And the other part of that is about our institutions and our partnership structures. So the Combined Authority is going through its own transformation programme. We are reforming how we deliver economic development services across the region, but we want to really think about how we are bringing partners across the region beyond the public sector into the delivery of the growth plan. And we've described setting up a West Midlands Growth Summit that every year will take stock of how we're getting on in delivering the growth plan. We also talk about the need to involve citizens in the kind of conversation about where next. So we think what we have set out in the growth plan, as you alluded to, Chair, there are some specific actions that are committed in the growth plan, but really its function going forward is going to provide direction to what the Combined Authority invests in, what we hope kind of other partners will invest in as well, with sight of where the region is collectively going. And what we are trying to do now is translate, as a combined authority, is translate the growth plan into a concrete plan for what we're going to do over the next 3 years. We've set out what the vision is. We've set out what the things are that we think need to change. We are now in the process of taking that further into the next layer of detail. And so the plan has been very well received by colleagues in government. The launch event in July, we were pleased that all of the leaders and in some cases deputies came to join us and signed a growth plan page, which was brilliant. We had a number of high-profile speakers, including Greg Clark, the former cabinet minister and member of the government's National Industrial Strategy Advisory Council, and we also received backing from all 3 of the region's chambers of commerce, and then also a number of other positive kind of spokespersons were also very pleased with it as well. So the mayor over the last month or 2 in particular, on the back of the growth plan launch, has been making a series of announcements around the things that are starting to be delivered to take forward that. And you know, there has been a different theme of announcements every week, and so there has been very little time kind of wasted in explaining what next and how that's being delivered. So Chair, we are kind of really grateful for the committee's input on discussions about the green paper that has been the precursor to this over the last 2 sessions. We really want to kind of keep the conversation going. There are a number of specific sessions that on the back of the last meeting we had, I know our colleagues in the governance team are in the process of arranging, where you expressed particular interests in, for example, the hospitality industry, the care sector, and we're in the process of bringing that together for you, and they will start to go in diary soon. But we really, the growth plan will inform and provide the context to a lot of what we do as a region over the coming years, and so we want to keep this conversation going with you about it. And as I say, happy to take your lead on what further information it will be useful to get into and when. But I hope that's useful as a scene setter for the discussion, and we'll be happy to take any questions, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Councillors, questions? Councillor Scott.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Jonathan. The growth plan is pretty ambitious. I think it's fair to say that. And like I said, a lot of the comments through around unemployment and things and the work that's got to be done to have all the sort of structural unemployment in the West Midlands is going to be a pretty huge task for sort of everyone involved. But it'd be good to hear a bit more about what the sort of plan is around tackling that, because it's referenced in the plan that the unemployment rate in the West Midlands is take a huge amount of the country's national share, a much higher rate. So obviously that needs to be a sort of core part of it. But I suppose my first question is what assessment's been made of the capacity and resources in terms of the combined authority, but also other local authorities to help deliver some of this? Is there capacity in the system and the organisation to deliver it? Because it is, I say, it's a big task. And then I suppose just my second point is what work's being undertaken to make sure that the growth plan and what we're sort of seeking to deliver here gets the national significance and that it deserves, really, because it is really ambitious. So thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, if there are other questions, like I would be happy to take them in the round, and also if there are other themes that colleagues want to say as well, I'm happy to pick them up together. But thank you for the question there, Councillor. We'll come back on those 3 points.
Unless anybody else has got a specific, I have got a specific. You mentioned, I'm not sure whether you used the word ethnic origin or race. In the West, I saw a government paper which talked about employment participation rates between various backgrounds from people, ethnic backgrounds from people, but it might have been country backgrounds. I'm not totally sure. The most high participation rate was for white people who weren't born here, and the least was for Bangladesh and Pakistanis. These are national figures, but those latter two categories had improved really remarkably over the last few years. And I wondered if we, A, had that same issue here, and B, whether we knew why things had got better and whether we could actually repeat it, because participation rates do get people out of poverty, or families out of poverty. I wondered whether we actually had a specific plan, if only to investigate that, to actually understand it. So that kinds of ties in with Councillor Scott's point about unemployment, I think.
Great. Happy to come back on those 4 questions, and then happy to take any more if any further questions come up through the course of the discussion. So the first point, the question that was asked is around unemployment. So I think you are right that we have a disproportionately large share of the country's employment here in the West Midlands. There is a figure around, we are something like 8 or 9% of the unemployment count in the country, but around 4% of the country's population. So we're disproportionately represented, as you say. There have been some really excellent initiatives underway that have started to address this, including, for example, we have the largest devolved budget for adult skills, and we've made some really good progress towards adult skills devolution. We have increased the number of residents with higher level qualifications and seen a real fall in the number of residents with zero qualifications. So there has been progress, and initiatives like Thrive at Work, which is invested in something like 600,000 employees to help them who have health conditions to stay in work, as well as initiatives that I think you discussed last time around the job evaluation programme. There are green shoots there. The Mayor has recently, as you will have seen, secured pledges from over 10,000 employers to help upskill young people. So again, we're seeing kind of more and more be done there. I think in terms of the next steps, so one of the biggest actions that is put forward in the growth plan is to develop what we call an integrated adult skills and employment system. So this is the idea that there is a lot of support out there, but it's provided from different organizations. And if you are a person and you need, some health support, you may need some job coaching, you may need then to be in a position to access a level 2 or 3 qualification. Those are all kind of very different routes to entry into the system. And the key central action in the growth plan is how can we make it easier for people to be able to navigate those different support systems and to access the help they need commensurate with what their individual needs are. So there's been some great work done in Birmingham through the development of their work and work service system. There is some great work in Coventry around the job shop, for example, that are seeking to kind of make this model real in local places. And we kind of want to see that model kind of expanded and deepened, including through further devolution, but also through how we as a region are bringing those structures together and making it easier for people to access help. So that is one of the key actions around how do we kind of develop that system, bring more devolved powers into it, get the region kind of plugging all behind it, and that's one of the main actions as well. I think last time you would have talked about the at the last ONS committee, you would have talked about the Get Britain Working plan. So that will go into a lot more detail around some of the things that need to happen in order to make this real. And as you say, we're in quite regular conversations with senior officials in government about the support we need from them to make that happen. So that's around the employment. I think we're all realistic around the scale of the challenge, but as I mentioned, we have the advantage of having the second fastest growing population of any city region in the UK, and the youngest population by one other region as well. If we can get that right, and there has been some excellent work done on that before, and there is also a clear sense of what needs to change going future, that is an enormous economic advantage that the West Midlands has over other places. So our kind of challenge is in some ways a really big opportunity, if you like. The second question was around the capacity and resources at the CA levels. So I think in one level, the answer to that is we our role at the Combined Authority is, and with our local partners, is to make the best use of the resources that we have. So it would always be nice to be able to say we need more money from central government, and that there is some truth in that, right? And I think one of the biggest priorities we have as a region is to see the fair funding review, which the government has announced to look at local funding, is to see that deliver a positive outcome for the region's financial stability. And a lot of our public affairs work is geared towards securing that end. But as much as we need to keep having that conversation, part of our role is to make sure that our resources are kind of working as effectively as we can. So one of the things in the growth plan is around reforming how we do economic development through creating an economic development vehicle, which is trying to bring more cohesion to how we, the CA, the local authorities, our other partners, how we are spending money on economic development. There's a lot of kind of opportunities to work more effectively and to maybe reuse our resources more efficiently. And so that is a really big part of what we're trying to do as well. The Combined Authority, as mentioned, is also in the middle of a transformation programme. One of the elements of that is about how we work in partnership with our local authorities, whether we are super clear that the roles and responsibilities that we have are still as clear as they need to be, and that ultimately we can use our collective capacity most effectively. So in some ways, there is a really important need for, the kind of long-term financially sustainable position on local authority financing, and as mentioned, that is a high priority for the region. But alongside that, there is a real need to look at how we are kind of getting the most out of the resources and capacity that we already have between the CA and LA as well. And there are at least two big pieces of work underway on that. But it's absolutely the right question to be asking. In terms of national government, so as you would have noticed, the West Midlands Combined Authority has a we're in an exciting place in our devolution journey. We have just seen the English devolution bill. We've published our growth plan. We are picking up that those things are getting a lot of traction from central government. Our new chief executive, or the interim chief executive, Ed Cox, he has been speaking with a lot of his counterparts down in Whitehall and has been really pleased about how much awareness the growth plan has had at senior levels of government and how much national buy-in there is. I think there is a recognition that the West Midlands does have a distinctive role in the UK economy. We are £77 billion. We are kind of a very large share of the UK economy. If we can get the West Midlands kind of right, that will deliver enormous benefits to the wider country. And I think we are seeing a really kind of strong recognition of our role in that. We reference in the growth plan that we are only one of 2 regions where all of the government's national industrial strategy clusters align with our strengths as a region. So we are as aligned as we possibly can be with the government's national economic strategy for industry as well. And there's only one other region where that is the case. So I think we are seeing that national buy-in as well. And obviously the spending review that happened a couple of weeks ago was quite positive for the West Midlands in committing to more funding for transport, the extension for the metro out to Bosley Park for the sports quarter commitment, and also we are in live conversations with government about the multi-year integrated settlement and the potential for further devolution there. So it's an ongoing task to keep that conversation going, but the fact we are hosting government and the world, if you like, and the investment community in the West Midlands in October through the Regional Investment Summit is a really good opportunity to really shout about what the West Midlands can do from the UK and some of the amazing work that's going on here as well. The last question you asked about was around ethnicity. So you are right. Unlike we are also the second most ethnically diverse region of the UK. There has been a kind of sustained period of work underway as part of the Race Equalities Task Force to really make sure that we are supporting our entrepreneurs, business leaders, and learners from all parts of the country, from all parts of the region. As you say, there are some inequalities in the economic outcomes that we see between different ethnic groups. I think it's something like there are 40,000 or so people. The correct statistic will be in the West Midlands Futures Green Paper. Around 40,000 people who are of the same level of educational qualification, but have not the same economic outcomes from ethnic minority communities. So that is an economic issue because we are not then realising the full potential of all of our communities as well. And also, if you look at access to finance and business growth, the statistic is 43% of ethnic minority-led businesses go on beyond the 42-month mark, which is the point at which businesses usually become income generating. But for white-owned businesses, that statistic is 67%. So there is a real issue there in how we are supporting some of our ethnic minority-led businesses to scale up. But as mentioned, the work on the Race Equalities Task Force that has been going for some time now has existed in order to seek to understand and address some of those drivers. It is an enormous strength, and there are things that we can do about it. The suggestion, Chair, to learn from what's happened nationally is a really good one, and we can take that back up and wait and feed it with the team, feed it back to the team leading that work. So I think they were the 4 questions you posed on the back of the report. Happy to take any more, Chair, but hope those answers were helpful as a start for 10.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Walters next, and then Councillor Kettle.
Leave the best to the last. Thank you, Chair. Now, you mentioned areas that are focused on Coventry and Birmingham. Now, I assume there is funding. Now, I actually done a statement in full council, and this is one of the questions that was asked in Warsaw. Is there any, what is there, can we actually have a breakdown on what money is actually coming into each area rather than an overview of what's the monies that's been allocated? Because it's a case of, I know the stats for Warsaw and they are pretty high for ethnic and certain areas that have got deprivation where people aren't working and need to get back into work. So can we have some information on that, the actual money that's coming into each area, Dudley, Towley or wherever it is? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Waters. So yes, we'd be happy to go away and produce something like that. The growth plan is a plan for the whole of the West Midlands. So although I mentioned Birmingham and Coventry in there in the context of some examples of work underway for that happening now, we could have kind of gone on for a long time and listing the breadth of things that are happening across the region. So if you look at in the places section, for example, if there is a reference to every part of the region as part of that section and some of the investment opportunities that are there. I think we in the growth plan are quite kind of clear about the fact the West Midlands, we are home and the proud home of the UK's second city, and we really shout about that, and we really want to kind of make kind of the role of Birmingham really clear. It props up jobs and creates living standards across the whole of the region, but we are different to the region that we have three centres of economic gravity, if you like, around the Black Country, Birmingham, Solihull, and then Coventry. We think that is a strength to play up, and we name that, and we've got kind of as an underlying theme of the growth plan in and of itself. So although Birmingham is obviously the largest part of the region, we are really clear that different places have very, very different strengths. If you look at the kind of high growth clusters section of the growth plan, that lists where spatially are some of the kind of industries of the future. If you look at that, you will see, you know, that there is a lot of activity across different parts of the region. If you look in the Black Country around the investment zone program there in the Wolves Green Innovation Corridor, kind of Walsall's plan around the master plan that they've got for the city centre as well, the kind of huge investment that's went into the kind of Dudley Metro corridor as well, what we're seeing in West Bromwich around some of their opportunities in their Sandwell's long-term regen pipeline there, and then right out into the east where you look into the East Birmingham, North Solihull, the massive commitment that was made by the country. Although that if you want, once we can get into this in a bit more, but we just kind of wanted to make it really clear that this is 100% a plan for all parts of the West Midlands, and if one part grows, that's better for the other as well. So we can definitely get into that in a bit more detail. Councillor Waters, that's not a problem.
Councillor Cashin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate Mr. Gibbons on quite an enormous amount of work that's gone into this growth plan. And of course, when you start to go through it, following on the previous question, I felt that you wrote off 1 million people north of the Birmingham town centre, outside of the cities, and that really we were something of an afterthought, because I think it does concentrate on the three cities, and of course, Solihull will gain from the hub, but we do need, I think, a greater impetus in wealth creation in our areas. It's a good piece of work. It's quite, and as I went through it, I thought, well, 2% a year is great. What is inflation? Are we only matching inflation? Are we even matching inflation with 2%? What is happening in other parts of the world? The Chinese growth rates and things like this in the Far East are making the Western world start to shake a bit. There's no doubt about it. But can I just go through points that I think that we can work on? Having read this, we can follow on. And first is, of course, the foundation of people's careers, in that our output from our schools needs to increase 50% to match the London average. If you look at Saturday's paper, where they tell you that our kids need to increase our output from the schools by 50% in GCSE levels, it's a tremendous drawback. And for people to go on to a career and with value added throughout and growth throughout their working life, the foundations have got to be right, and we've got to look, whether we like it or not, at the output from our schools. If we are 50% behind London, we start on the back foot, don't we? Looking at the plan again, the distance people travel to work and congestion have been raised. And looking at the report, you say you've got problems in Birmingham and the city centres. Well, anybody who's ever tried to travel around Dudley and Albury in the morning will soon know that you can't get to 2 miles out of Dudley to the motorway, the top of the M5, in less than about 50 minutes or maybe more. And the road up to Sedgley, the 456 out of Birmingham, the Agley Road, Halesoe, the island. People get blocked there every day for God knows how long. And I think we've got to look at the infrastructure and the distance and time to work, which will be if we can improve the time, even 5 minutes a day, as I said at our last meeting, we can make life different and improved greatly for our working population. In the east of the conurbation, our freight can go into East Midlands, and it's a freight airline freight centre. But also in the west of the conurbation, we've got Aitney Green, there's an airport there. Why couldn't we have a freight connector for the west of the West Midlands over at Aitney Green? Another aspect. Also, looking at the regional prospect, Pensnet Trading Estate on the west side of Dudley is the biggest trading estate in Europe, and yet it is in many ways landlocked by communications, because you can't get to a motorway in under about 50 minutes, whichever direction you go in. And things like this, I think we can, this piece of work is good, but it is highlighting what we need to do to get there. And, you know, I do congratulate you once again, Mr. Gibson. But if we can't get the foundations right for our children, and if they come out of school with 50%, with a need of 50% of matched London, then we're already on the back foot, aren't we? Can I raise, before I finish, just make a comment that was something that we witnessed over in Dudley quite recently, where people we regard as impoverished are remitting half their income to Southeast Asia in one way or another. And the biggest impact on the Indian economy, which is enormous, is remitted income from elsewhere into that economy. So when we look at poverty amongst the ethnic minorities, you must not overlook the fact that some of it is self-inflicted and they have a different priority to ourselves. You must take this into consideration when we look at what's happening. So here's a few points, Mr. Gibson. I hope you don't mind, but I thought your report was very good, but it does highlight some aspects of it. And I do feel at the moment that far more attention needs to be put into our reports for the boroughs north of Birmingham. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kettle, for the points and the feedback. And just on the congratulations point, so I mean, it's me giving you this presentation today, but there really has been a huge team of people involved in making this across the Combined Authority, but also within our local authorities as well. And we had 142 responses to the consultation from external partners around this. So I can't take credit for it all, but I will definitely let the wider teams know that I'll pass on those remarks. Just on the first point you made around what north of Birmingham and even west of Birmingham. So I think the first thing we need to do is about the role of Birmingham in the West Midlands. So the most recent data we've got on the number of people who travel, how people travel to work around the region, the statistic is something like 70,000 people from other parts of the West Midlands Combined Authority area travel into Birmingham for work. So Birmingham is propping up jobs and living standards in around 70,000 people across the West Midlands. So the idea that, you know, Birmingham's growth is good for the other parts of the region, without doubt, and the figures do back that up. I think what you're getting to, though, is that there are different parts of the region that have kind of contributions to make and roles in the regional economy as well. So I think we are quite clear that there are kind of at least 3 core centres of economic gravity in the region. Birmingham and Solihull, yes, but also the Black Country and Coventry itself. And in the section on high growth clusters, you'll be able to, it's quite clear that we have innovators and real kind of drivers of wealth creation in all 3 of those economic centres. They've got different strengths. If you look at, you know, Wolverhampton and in Walsall around the I-54 corridor into Staffordshire. There's a really kind of exciting kind of opportunity there. The Spark site in Walsall, which has received a considerable amount of support. What we're seeing in Dudley on the metro extension as well. These are just some examples of how we're seeing things in different parts of the region really kind of taking off and supporting the growth of the region as a whole. On the specific transport points you mentioned, Councillor Kettle, so the growth plan itself is not meant to be a detailed document that outlines what the specific nature of future transport improvements are. What I think it would be helpful for the committee is in future to have a conversation around the future local transport plan and the work underway as part of the development of that, because I think that's where you will see much more detail on exactly what the nature of the plan is for the wider region, including on the issue you mentioned around freight. So I haven't got the information to hand to kind of give you a convincing answer around freight, Councillor Kettle, but I think the team here at the Combined Authority could probably come back and give you a more convincing answer around that. But there will be that plan is in the works and will be coming out at some point in the near future. So I think it would be worth having a conversation around that to get into some of those questions around transport issues across the region, because the road network that we have a role in alongside with our local authorities, the bus franchising route, they are things that will happen across all parts of the region. There are some particularities around Birmingham. The National Infrastructure Commission has shown that it has the highest projected forecast congestion of any other major city by the mid 2040s. So its kind of congestion has drawn national attention, but that doesn't mean in the West Midlands here that's the only kind of thing we think about at all. Our transport team invests a lot of time and effort into understanding the challenges across the wider region as well. So we could certainly bring something back on that if that's helpful, including with a focus on freight too. On the point you made about careers and schools, so I think you're really right to highlight that. And as mentioned in answer to Councillor Waters, if we can get some of these support systems right, then we've got an enormous demographic advantage that we're sitting on in the West Midlands as well. Obviously, careers and schools, they're not a devolved Combined Authority responsibility, but we have a good relationship with our colleges. We are starting to develop a compact with the colleges across the region about what we can do together to make sure there are proper pathways out of post-16 education into the wider support systems that are available for beyond 16 as well. And obviously schools and early years, that they are referenced in the growth plan as things that we need to get right. If we're not getting early years right, then everything else afterwards is much more difficult. There's a lot of work underway, particularly in Sandwell, supported by the government, to look at how, for children with special education needs, how we can do things better and design services better for those families and those communities as well. And that's something we are kind of really pleased to see announced as part of the Cabinet Office's work on public sector innovation. And that might be another area the committee wants to hear about more about soon. But we certainly don't deny the needs to get that right. There are some levers that the Combined Authority has with our local authorities, but that is almost part of the policy landscape that is currently kind of not really within scope of devolution at the minute. But we certainly agree with the sentiment. It's more a question of what can we confidently say we can do about it as part of this growth plan at this point in time. So I think, Councillor Kettle, thank you for those questions on transport. I think it's worth coming back to this group with something more on the local transport plan at the right time. And on careers, I hope that's kind of gives you a flavour of how we think about that, given our roles and responsibilities across the region. And again, I hope the work we start to kind of outline there around that this is a growth plan for the whole of the region started to address some of those kind of questions around, well, what does it mean for Walsall, for Dudley, for Wolverhampton and for Solihull, etc., because they have incredibly important roles in delivering this going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that, Jonathan. I've got two things. One, I want to ask Lindsay. I asked you to get a whole range of data on education up to level 4, i.e. the things that we've been spending a lot of money on, because it came up in our work plan somewhere. Officers are going to be able to do the level of detail that I asked for. Are they basically what we've got is regional training centres doing things. I'll pick on three. There is a construction one just over the border from Solihull in Bromsgrove or wherever it is down that area. We've just opened a new culinary college, again in Solihull in Chelmsley Wood. And Dudley is getting its house insulation and photovoltaic retrofits. Thank you. There are other things, and I suspect if I don't know what they are, you don't know what they are, and we don't know whether they're working. We expressed a great deal of interest in those everyday skills. We're spending a lot of money on it, and we have no idea what's going on. I think collectively we might know our little bit, but we don't know the whole thing. So I have asked for that. We think we're going to get it. Do we, Lindsay?
Yes, that's correct, Chair. So I have reached out to the officer responsible, but he's been on leave the last couple of weeks, so I'll follow that up again this week.
I mean, to me, that's important, not urgent, because it will be interesting to see whether this is actually working. And it then ties back into, well, if the only place you can do culinary skills in the West Midlands is in Chelmsley Wood, can anybody get there?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it ties together quite a few things. So we've asked for that. The second thing is on page 25, Jonathan, there are 4 asks from government. Jonathan?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Sorry, yeah, on page 25, there are 4 asks from government for the combined authority to be responsible and accountable for technical education from 16 to 19, all employment support programs, what used to be called the apprenticeship levy, but is now the growth and skills offer, and the pooling of multiple budgets. That is one of the asks that we've got. Can we pull that out and say, yes, we support that in detail? Will that help? Because I think that ties into a number of points that have actually been made about having better outcomes from schools. It's not getting down all the way down to schools, but 16 to 19-year-olds in the apprenticeship levy, they do all play together at that level, the everyday economy. Are you comfortable if we just say, yes, we support that and minute that and say, we want that to happen?
That would be very helpful. Yes, please, Chair.
Right. Is it? It's on the top of page 25 for those that have got to the
Middle bullet. Middle bullet.
Oh, sorry, it's on page 39 if you got the page printed off version.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's on 25 in the middle bullet, yeah, on the right.
So on my one, it's there, but there are different
Paper
versions
one.
of this. The paper one comes on page 39. Is everybody comfortable with that?
I think that would be very helpful, Mr. Chairman, because let's admit it, when we started to inquire about how many pools of funding we had to try and get into, our officers themselves were amazed at how many were involved. And we were supposed to simplify this with a single settlement, but we ain't halfway there yet. So an update on that would be a good idea.
I think at this stage, I'd just like to register in our minutes that we strongly support this call on government. And then hopefully over some period of time, maybe the combined authority can get decentralised more of the employment support stuff. We have talked about career counselling in schools and that kind of stuff to link all the stuff together. But small steps, get this lot first, and then we can make it work, and then we can move on to the next stuff. Councillor Baker.
Chairman, I really do think that what we ought to say is we've always had ambition for the West Midlands. It hasn't always come out in this sort of form, and this is an ambitious plan. There's more pitfalls in this than there perhaps is, the golden road to glory. But the opportunity, the ambition that's placed in that, the opportunity for local government to work in its very many different sectors, to come behind and to kind of iron out some of the creases so that we can get where we want to get. I think that has to be recognised first of all. I think the points that you've made in relation to those that top of page 25 is absolutely crucial to this committee and going forward, because we're still finding our way, and we need to have the same ambition in this committee as is in this document. The West Midlands is a great place. We hear so much about the knocking part of it. The West Midlands is a great place. We would be even better if we can get our machinery right to deliver some of the issues that we all know is maybe not quite there at the moment. So I think it's a good document. I really do. I think there's a big opportunity for us sitting here in this particular committee in this role that we do. It's an enormous challenge for every single local authority that's party to this, not just the 7 inside the Met counties, it's the others that are involved. You know, and the region is a big for us. The developments that's taking place in Staffordshire with terms of connectivity for freight in relation to Four Ashes, you know, I don't think enough people know about really. I think the people that live locally do, and I'm not making any comment about that, but the impact and the opportunity and the ambition that will be developed for industry, business and commerce is going to be quite important to, especially with the green environment plan that we're all hoping to get to. So there's big issues to overcome, but the ambition is something that we all ought to embrace and be enthusiastic about.
So I'll amend what I said before. So we say we strongly support the ambition and strategy in this document. And everybody, I think, said that. And secondly, we strongly support those items that are at the top page 25 and or 39. Is there anything else that we want to say in addition to that? I mean, because clearly it's a good piece of work, but our minutes are to help officers, I think, on this particular issue, because we all support this. Okay, thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your comments. We look forward to getting back in touch and we'll follow up on some of those extra points. But yeah, thank you very much.
Oh, so did you have a question? Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. No, I think the most of my questions have been answered for the Councillor Carter and yourselves. I was thinking to raise one question, Jonathan, quickly. As we want to spend 1 million on employment and skills system every year at the combined authority. Can you ensure us what steps are being taken to implement the local skills improvement plan for the young individuals who either don't get to the university place or choose not to go there after the post-19? Thank you.
Thank you. So just to check, the question is, what is the work happening through the employment? What work is happening to help people with education who don't go into university education, who want to get into technical education as part of the work underway on an integrated employment and skills system? Was just to double check, is that the right question?
Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Great. So I think I would say a couple of things. So the section in the growth plan that talks about people, which we started to get into a discussion about what we need from government in order to do more. The points I would point to in relation to that are, one, we are trying to work with our colleges to make sure that across the region we have a shared understanding of how we are working, what each other is doing and what our future economic needs are. So there is that conversation underway with providers of technical education in order to do that. A lot of what we invest our devolved funding in through the adult education budget, free courses for jobs, skills boot camps, is geared towards technical education. I don't have the figure at the minute for how much that is, what the breakdown is between technical non-education, but overall it's around £150 million per year is what we currently receive as well. In terms of technical education specifically as part of that, though, we are defining a number of kind of emerging skills challenges that we have committed to invest in. So there will be targeted skills action plans. in areas, for example, like construction and retrofit. There is a commitment to a green skills action plan. We know we've got a lot of work to do around decarbonisation and retrofit, around construction, which we are kind of speaking to government about as well. And then there is also a specific commitment of money for skills innovation. So that is partly about how do we address some of the skills gaps in some of the region's priority sectors, but we also are going to work with local authorities, voluntary and community organisations to work out where are there areas where our current skills system is not really serving our residents for one or another reason, and we've made a commitment to invest in that as well. So those are some of the specific things that the combined authority has committed to do. You mentioned the local skills improvement plan, which I think is a very sensible thing to reference in this context. So we, alongside the chambers of commerce in the region, we are going to jointly produce local skills improvement plans with them, and then colleges in future they will have regard to what those what they need to do to support the local skills improvement plan. So that will in some ways be, we won't be responsible for the money for vocation for technical training, but we will be able to say to providers, here are the things our economy needs in the local skills improvement plan, and the intention is that for providers of that education, they will have to have regard to some of those things as well. So I hope that's a helpful answer to your question for now, both on yes, that is an important part of what we are doing. There are some specific things committed in the growth plan. If you look at particularly actions 5 onwards on page 23, there are some specific commitments there. But the work on the local skills improvement plan is almost how we give direction to the wider pool of resources available. So I'm happy to if that would be helpful, Chair, as on the back of this, if that is an area of further interest for the committee, I'm sure the relevant teams here can get into that in a bit more detail.
Thank you.
I think we should be recording. I mean, I've asked for that information. I think we've got another piece that we want that ties in with that, which is to understand how it's going to be taken forward. So we'll look back, but we also want to understand what the plans are.
That's it. Thank you.
I've captured that
Yeah,
right.
thank you, Chair. Yes.
Thank you. I think we have one outstanding item, which is how are we going to handle Councillor Kettle's issue about does the transport match up with the ambition? At the moment, that's not us. So we can merely recommend that TDOS look at that. We might be able to request a joint session on it. Can we do that, do you think?
That's fine, Chair. I can take the comments back to the chair of Transport Scrutiny Committee, and there could potentially be a joint briefing session with both members.
Councillor Bateman.
I think that the connectivity, along with the other communications, is absolutely key to anything that we do, both at any level within our overall plans to support the West Midlands Growth Plan. And connectivity, well, you just won't get what we want without people understanding and developing and pushing and taking flak for issues that relate to connectivity. We kind of go around with a paper bag over our heads or on that. So I support your call for a meeting that will help us thrash out the requirements that we need to go forward on connectivity.
Thank you, Councillor Bateman. So we'll see whether we can get a joint thing to look at that. Assuming, of course, we don't end up as the only committee, in which case we can do it.
We can do it ourselves anyway.
We don't know. We're not total masters of our own destiny. I think we have finished this item now. Yes. Oh, right. So we're now going to. Sorry, did you have a?
No. I was merely asking where he got that.
Sorry, did you not? Did everybody not get a copy?
I didn't get a copy.
How did we go, Lord?
Because I asked for one.
There's a copy in the
They
middle.
arrived through the post, which was a nice surprise.
Yeah.
They were posted to members. obviously we access your address from your local authority website. So if it is your council house, that's the address, it would be the.
We'll stuck in the internal post somewhere.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Mine will be in my locker.
Okay, that's great. So if we can now move on to agenda item 6, which was the final evaluation of the job rotation model. Now, this does actually fit as a microcosm of the big strategy. So, who we? Oh, yeah,
Hello,
sorry.
Chair. How are we?
Indeed. Hello, welcome back.
Yes.
And
Long time no see.
I will hand over to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Chair. At the last scrutiny panel I attended, along with my colleague John Hall here, we presented findings from the pilot at the end of March, the 31st, 2025. We still had some participants on the programme due to an extension that we requested from DWP, Department of Work and Pensions, who sponsored the project overall. And the request was to come back with final outcomes and outputs from the job rotation pilot, which are described in summary in the section 2.3 of the paper. So these are presented to you. What I would observe from the work that has been done to date. So the first thing is the pilot now has been absolutely completed. So we have no more outstanding participants on the programme. They were finalised by the 31st of June. And in total, the original target was to get a total of 80 employees upskilled and also a total of 80 those participants actually backfill candidates. So we ended up with 72 existing employees from a total of 80 and 65 backfill candidates from a target for work placement. It's fair to say that those were all claiming universal credit, and the whole point of the pilot is to test the attitude and aptitude and appetite for employers to get involved in what is essentially a pilot that both provides work experience for new candidates, but then also at the same time is able to support existing members of staff who have been identified for upskilling in this place. And that is the essence of the pilot. As a result of those backfilling candidates, i.e. those who come in from universal credit, have gone through work experience with respective employers, we're looking at a total there of 37 out of 65 going into work as a consequence of this, 57%. And also when we look at that on an SME basis, as in small medium enterprise, of which there were employers in this space, which is part of the pilot to be tested, that actually stacks up at 100%. So whilst the numbers are small in that space, this represents some really encouraging activity that we've done, which is completely different from what you would have as a normal restart program, work and health program in that place, which is conventional stuff that we encounter in the region. You're absolutely right, Chair. I will say a bit more about it in a few moments, but the growth plan, the work going forward, this is a microcosm of that. It starts to test out what we think can and will work in the region, and it's then up for us as officers to have those discussions and conversations with government, in particular about how we move this forward into a bigger and better place. The numbers are small. Okay? It's not going to make a massive impact at this present moment in time, but it's very, very encouraging in that space. I think the other thing that we are particularly pleased with this is that we've also been able to utilise our adult skills budget along the side of this. So whilst upskilling, it could be that, yes, we'll go off and do, an employer might decide, yeah, that's up for us. What have you got? And that training has actually been sourced locally from our existing adult education budget. So we're able to use that. The other point that I would make, which came out as part of the evaluation, which is in here as well, is that we still need to do an awful lot of work to actually not educate, but promote skills offers to businesses across the region. It was on more than one occasion, for example, where in fact businesses would be, as a result of conversations with the delivery team within Coventry City Council, actually they've been enlightened, for one way expression, about what is the art of the possible with skills offers that can be used within this place. And that brings in time as well what Jonathan was talking about in due course, which is around skills boot camps and so on and so forth, our wider offer in the place. So it's got many advantages. The other observation is that it's not just any sector, it is any sector that seems to have worked with this. It is not sector specific. Whilst we have a larger employer in this place, which we also wanted to test with this, Severn Trent volunteered to come forward for this. They've all come back with, the evaluation pays note to this, that it's been a very successful is one word to use, but it's more about actually being involved with it and seeing how businesses are actually supported through a programme that has a reasonable amount of flexibility within it. And I don't know, I could go on about this for a long time. But just in terms of future, we're looking to develop this further. We have funding through the investment zone within the region, and that will be the next place where we start to roll this out further. The advantage of investment zones is that the funding for that lasts until the 31st of March 2029, the first tranche of that, which means we've got greater flexibility in terms of time to see how we can go with potentially longer courses of delivery. It also starts to test out the attitudes of colleges and other providers to actually flex their delivery at the same place as well. So, as an example of that, it might well be that presently most college delivery starts in September and will finish in sort of like May or June. It is possible that as a result of this, that we're able to start to sponsor and support existing delivery, but also have that flexibility around open learning, as well as, somebody or employees going off to day release in traditional. So investment zones are one area that we're looking as part of that proposal. The other existing one that's just about to start to come out, emerge, is for Coventry City Council to use adapt job rotation to the Youth Trailblazer for Coventry City Council area, which is encouraging because as Coventry City Council, they were involved in they were the delivery arm for this. So it's quite good that they've actually seen the potential to help and support young people in this place as well, along similar principles.
Questions and comments? I've got Councillor Waters. Actually, can I go to Gavin first on the basis that this was in Coventry and might add a little bit of something that we don't know?
Don't know about that, Chair, but I'll give it a go. Apologies to jump over you, Vera.
It's all right.
So I've been out to Coventry Job Shop 50, 60 times now since this scheme's been active, and I've met many people that have gone through it, both the employer but the employee at the end as well. I've lost count how many people I've met, and every single one of them has actually got a smile on their face, and they're positive. even the ones that had a bit of a negative experience, and I won't name the company at the start, they were given a different place. It worked. They were happy. There was support behind them. And I'll go to one gentleman. I'll call him Mr. B for GDPR and all that stuff. But Mr. B was a long-time friend, and his exact words to me were, "Gav, I wish we had this instead of a job centre," which to me says everything that you need to know. And now I will blow Coventry's trumpet because we're brilliant. We're the best on the planet. It's as simple as that. That last report with all our Tommy Shelby quotes, it should have been the other Stephen Knight hit, but there we go. And the programme there in Coventry with the support of JLR 7 Trent, perfect. It works. It's great. But it's actually like SME bit. Now what we found in Coventry is that little bit extra, where we had a shortage of people in adult social care. And as if by magic, here's a new pool of non-agency staff that aren't going to cost us £1 million per month. Reasonable contract, get them trained in, get them skilled up. And I believe every single one of them are now in a role. So it was 100% success rate on that.
Yes.
Which is just phenomenal. And the only probing question I've got though, because I mean, I could go on forever and a day of how brilliant the scheme is, but one sort of bit on it. There's a huge part of this that falls under education and not in employment. Funding is always going to be an issue. Now, we know it's not got the huge numbers of success that are going to change the world, predominantly because of the resource behind it. Is there a route or a mechanism at all that, because of that education side to it, we could look to 106 monies in planning terms to help booster more to go through the scheme? 106. According to education,
It's not ceremony.
That's a novel thought. Shall I respond, please? I think that's a really good idea. There's two dimensions to this. The first one is that the pilot itself was £750,000 in total. A very noble thing for the Department for Work and Pensions to basically give us to do as a combined authority, and we're very grateful for that. Moving forward, discussions with government will include this as not only as a concept, a proven concept that actually starts to work. We are also mindful that in this space that there is opportunity in the future to start to have a far more not only advocate role, but also an actual control role over employment support budgets. So this might well be something that we start to factor into that. There are other opportunities, like you say, through Section 106s. We are just starting to look at how, for example, we use our own powers through purchasing. We've obviously got social value, Section 106s, and there's an awful lot I think we could do more to explore that and actually start to have those conversations properly with colleagues internally to make that point. It's something as well that we could also pick up with Coventry colleagues later on. I think it's either this week or next week where I'm meeting again to start to look at this as part of investment zones. But I'd like to also say to you, Councillor, thank you so much for your comments and your interest in this as well. I know you're clearly a councillor in the area, but I think it's really good that you're able to come back and report to colleagues as well on its success. Sorry, sir.
Use your mic. You're wandering off the mic.
I do apologise.
Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Chair. Now, in a previous life, I actually worked for an employment training team with a local housing association. And what we actually found was not all one size fits all. Now, I'll give you the areas. You could put a course on in Brownhills and you tried to put the same course on in Darlaston and it wouldn't work. Brownells would work fine, but Darlaston wouldn't. And believe it or not, although it's in the same borough, you've got a totally different clientele of people. Now, I hope with this, it's worked in Coventry. There may be a case when it's actually that what's the name out to the whole of the West Midlands, it's going to be the case of you're going to have to twig it in certain places. Now, when I was actually working this employment training team, we'd actually do employability schemes, courses, and straight away you would actually lose the interest of people because it was the same thing over and over again, and the job centre would put it on. Now, I've signed on twice in my life, and both times I went on employability skills, and both times they were the same one. And as the trainer was actually saying what was going on, I was sitting there and I was saying it with him, and he went, "Do you want to come up here and do it?" I said, "No, thank you. You're getting paid for it." So, as I say, it's worked in Coventry. I don't make the damper on it. It's worked in Coventry, but we are going to have to twig it for different areas to the clientele we're actually dealing with. Thank you.
Acknowledged. Yeah, how's that?
Thank you for that. I've got one final question if others haven't. Linking this in with our new college courses, it would appear to tie in very nicely with what's going to happen in Dudley on retrofit and what's going to happen in culinary skills. And those are small employers generally. And by the looks of it, small employers have a tendency to take more people based on a very small sample, I admit, but getting very specific things linked, tied together to me would seem to be an approach. Is that what we've got in mind?
Absolutely. As part of rollout dissemination, this week we are at the Combined Authority, Local Authority monthly skills officers meeting, where I will be presenting this as part of onward delivery. And I think then it's a case of having individual conversations with each respective local authority to see how that can start to roll out further. And as well as that, West Midlands Growth Company, for example, in that space. So.
Thank you. So our recommendations are please look at section 106 money, which is a new idea, and we totally.
On 106 money. You're something you're going to say. Sorry, I do.
No, I just want to sum up and move on because we are running.
Yeah.
We're running
very
late.
quickly.
Go for it.
Thank you, Chair. Now, I totally agree 106 money. Now, in Warsaw, it tends to get spent on things that are useful, not as useful as that could be. Now, I assume that's the same in other areas, and that's how it'd be. Now, it'd be very, very good if that could actually be put into part of the usage of when the 106 money's coming in. So I totally agree with that. Thank you.
Okay, so you'll go away and look at that. I mean, I'm not sure whether you can do it. This is a legal thing that planning people are giving the answer to, but it's novel and you can certainly do education. Whether we can do this, I don't know. And apart from that, we strongly support this initiative as written. That's our position, yes? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So just to introduce myself, my name is Jackie Homan. I'm Head of Environment at the Combined Authority, and I'm joined today by Mike Webb, who's on screen and who leads our natural environment work. We're going to take you through an item ahead of an update we're taking to the Combined Authority Board in November. It's an update about our natural environment work and is bringing together some significant pieces of work we've been doing over the last year or so, in conjunction with constituent and neighbouring local authorities and other environment organisations across the WMCA area. The first is the local nature recovery strategy, and we are one of 48 areas appointed by DEFRA as responsible authorities to lead on a local nature recovery strategy. That's a statutory piece of work and is currently out for public consultation. It's quite a significant piece of work, and we're going to take you through a summary of it now. The second is the local investment in natural capital programme, where we were appointed as one of 4 areas by DEFRA to look at routes to bring in private financing to support delivery of natural environment projects. And there's a couple of routes that we're looking to take forward on that. So we wanted to bring, we're aware that this work is still in progress because it's in consultation, but we wanted to bring the item to scrutiny ahead of going to the November Combined Authority Board. So I'm going to hand over to Mike. I believe the presentation is going to run through. You've already received, Lindsay, thank you for circulating ahead of the meeting. Mike, I'm not sure if you picked up the message because I know you've blocked messages coming into Teams, but this is going to have to be quite a whistle-stop tour.
No, that is fine, Jackie. It will be a summary of the summary, but I'll pick up the key points.
I'll hand over to you to take us through the slides, and obviously if we run out of time for questions in the meeting, we're more than happy to catch up on any points of clarification afterwards.
Oh, okay, brilliant. Well, firstly, thank you for this opportunity. There's a lot of work going on in this space, and it's really important work. So,
Loud.
Sorry about that. Can't hear them, he's saying they're too loud. Make your mind up.
Sorry, am I being heard okay?
Okay. Have you lowered it?
Yeah, I am.
He needs to say something.
Sorry, is there an issue with sound?
That's fine.
Okay, all right, thank you. Well, look, a little bit of national context is that we are one of the most nature depleted countries globally. We are seeing huge declines, and we have seen declines in our species and our habitats. It's also important to remember that nature does an awfully important job for us, and also for the economy. At least half of our GDP is either moderately or highly dependent upon our natural environment. So a lot of these things get overlooked, but nature is contributing to things like our well-being and our climate resilience as well. So it already is doing a fantastic job for us. But the elephant in the room is pretty obvious. It's funding shortfalls. We have an estimated funding gap across England of £3.6 billion per annum, and that isn't something that can necessarily be plugged through traditional government grant systems. And that's why we're looking at the 2 elements of this, looking at how we can recover nature, but also how we can support more sustainable funding systems for that. So what have we got? In the West Midlands, we know we are heavily built up. In essence, this map shows the pale green and the grey as the built up and the garden areas. So our urban and suburban development covers around about 60% of the region. You can see we've got some agriculture around the Meriden Gap and around the margins to the north and southwest. But predominantly, there are a lot of people living here, and that's the end result of it. In terms of protected sites, a total of 11% of the region is under some form of designation, some of it statutory, some of it non-statutory, being addressed via the planning system. In terms of what we have across the region, we've got nearly 3 million people and high levels of deprivation. And what's really interesting here, we do see a really strong correlation between those areas of greatest deprivation and actually those areas of nature depletion. So bottom left, we've got the red areas representing where there are deficiencies in accessible green space. And of course, on the bottom right, we can see the really obvious red bits, which are the areas of greatest climate vulnerability. And we do see those do correlate with those areas of greatest deprivation. So we know this is really important for our communities in the region. So the local nature recovery strategy, it's a statutory responsibility. It came on the back of the Environment Act in 2021. And each strategy must first look at establishing the evidence base of what's most valuable for us in our region. And that gets mapped, it gets described. We then need to work through an awful lot of consultation, specialist groups, a lot of workshopping to figure out and work out what are the priorities for nature recovery. So when we talk about nature, we're talking the habitats and the species principally, and then how we need to deliver that. How do we get that recovery in place? And then more importantly for us, or equally important, is looking at how we can utilize nature to deliver more of our environmental goals. And that's where we can start to pick up things like that accessible green space and the climate adaptation using nature. And we call that system nature-based solutions because nature delivers. And it's brought together through an awful lot of engagement and evidence gathering. And that process has been going on for over 18 months now, and we're currently at the public consultation stage, getting views from the general public on this. Importantly, though, in terms of its standing in the planning system, local authorities must have regard to the LNRS when they're plan making. So it will start to have an influence on where we look to recover nature in those local based documents and policies going forwards. And also some of the mapped areas that we find as our priorities for delivery in the region start to generate this concept of strategic significance, and that starts to be a prompt to deliver incentives for biodiversity net gain delivery in certain places. So we're starting to incentivize where biodiversity should be delivered on that more commercial basis. What does it look like? There are three main components to this. There's a mapping tool, which is something you can go in and interrogate at various levels, but in essence, it shows the good bits, the really important bits we have, those are mapped. It then goes on to layer up those areas we want to see priority taken to deliver certain actions and activities. We've got strong evidence base set out in the State of Nature report. And of course, the strategy itself sets out the whole context of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and who can deliver it, what those priorities are and where they should be going. That's all online, currently open to public consultation. So what does it look like? In essence, there are three areas where we've set out priorities and actions for delivery. We've got the nature recovery, which is the habitats of species. We've got the wider environmental things, which is about the people we've got and serving them, creating climate resilience, accessible green space, etc. And then we've got enabling delivery. And this is about setting the framework, putting the pieces in place to help us achieve those other points above. So this can be enabling communities to deliver or taking further steps towards our evidence base for attracting finance, nature finance, to fund and deliver projects across the region. Moving on to that recognition that we've got ambition, we've got needs that we need to deliver. We've been working on the local investment in natural capital programme Jackie mentioned earlier. And this is about us taking really innovative steps towards developing a more sustainable funding system for delivery of those ambitions across the region. So heading towards a nature positive economy. And there are a lot of outputs here. It's a huge programme, but the key ones we want to highlight here are the project pipeline, the nature investment hub, and the regional habitat bank. So the project pipeline is where we've engaged with local authorities and local organisations to pull together their projects that they want to deliver for their natural environment outcomes across the region. And in total, we've got over 200 projects in this pipeline. They're all at different stages of preparedness. The support we've been given is to help those organisations shape and develop those projects to become more attractive, to attract nature investment going forwards, and hence that step towards becoming more sustainable in terms of funding. And through this, what we have started to calculate is there is a £100 million funding gap at the regional level, and that's why it's really important we do this, and this is why we need to advance on this kind of initiative. On the positive, it's not just about the funding gap. There is also a massive 500 million potential economic uplift from delivering these kind of projects, because we know they deliver more than just nature itself. They deliver an awful lot of other benefits like carbon, flood attenuation, or well-being and welfare for the communities. The Nature Investment Hub, in essence, this slide shows a number of screenshots, but in essence, it's a shop front for our nature projects. And we've taken projects within the pipeline that are more mature and are closer to being ready for funding. And we've started to showcase them in a very graphical way, so it becomes very attractive. We're breaking them into smaller project groups, which become more attractive for finance. And this is where we can match people who want to buy BNG units or carbon units, so buyers of outcomes. We can also match people like corporates who may want to put their environmental social governance contributions into projects and see something that's up there. They can browse this. Ultimately, this is a step towards us developing a more structured funding approach for those projects across the region. It's the first time anything like this has happened for the region as well. And then finally, a little bit closer to home in terms of delivering planning, delivering our requirements through the biodiversity net gain system. At the moment, there are over 100 habitat banks selling biodiversity units across England. There isn't a single one in the West Midlands Combined Authority region. Number of reasons for that. But the key thing here is we've been working with our authorities, looking at sites they've brought forward, and we've been working to advise them to make those sites a bit closer to becoming registered, to be ready for delivery for sale of units. The top and bottom of it is that potentially we could bring in £36 million of revenue for local authorities delivering on their own sites that they've got control over, and those sites potentially are a cost liability and a cost to them at the moment, and we deliver these gains within the region. So we're taking control of delivery. It isn't going down the road to Buckinghamshire or up the road to Manchester. So it's us taking control and local authorities benefiting rather than private suppliers. The key to this will be setting up, and I'm afraid it will be a complex system, but it's setting up a special purpose vehicle to actually facilitate this. As you can imagine, there are a lot of structures, a lot of requirements for dealing with this. But at the end of the day, this is how we will take control of our future for delivering biodiversity across much of the region. And that's it. That's the summary of the summary. So happy to take questions that follow.
So I've got Councillor Waters, followed by Councillor Barker, followed by Councillor Bateman, and Councillor Kerr.
Thank you, Chair. Now, I would like to first say, I know we said about using the 106 money in the previous what's the name? But I've got to say, I would not like it all used because in my ward, we've got a nature reserve called Stubbers Green, and it was actually formed by the sinkage of the local pits, the lake, the limestone pit and the coal pit, and we've got no end of different birds and species in that area. And the thing about it was there was a main road running straight down the middle, and we had birds and animals getting run over because they were speeding through it. So we had in the planning committee, we had a local quarry come up for actually filling with rubble, not general waste. And I made sure in that planning committee that the 106 money went on chicanes to actually slow the traffic down. So as the less chance of the birds. Yes, occasionally you do get the odd one or two will actually speed through, but it's working absolutely fantastic. But you haven't got people complaining they're having to wait in queues, but yet you're going through a nature reserve. So I've got to say that is a really big potential for something like that to be used on to actually improve that. Because I mean, we've got the other side, we've got Barnes Lane fishing pool where they actually fish, whereas the two pools, there's no fishing on those pools. You're not allowed. There's a proper fishing pool, and there's loads and loads of potential. Because one thing that could be done that we was looking into was getting some wildflowers and that planted and natural, make it more natural and what have you. So yeah, totally agree. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I've got a couple of questions. I'm looking at the nature recovery map because I'm a geographer and I like maps. And I'm interested just with two of the correlations. One of which is the improving the terrestrial habitats. Forgive me, I'm reading the wrong one, wrong glasses. The urban environment is improved to become more nature rich, and public access to nature is improved across the region. Yep. Now, I've seen in my own area wildlife sites which are then opened up for more people to have access. And for me, and it's not a positive thing, the access itself can be one of the problems. So I think that's something that really needs to be thought about. So you get dog walkers in a wildlife site leaving poo, and that's not good. I just leave that one with you. The other correlation, I think the first map you showed was potentially, you're talking about PFI, which is notoriously expensive and a nightmare to pay off in the end. And I just wondered whether you had a little bit of explanation about the PFI.
Yeah, I think just to go to your first point, thank you for that. Yeah, absolutely, it is an issue, and when you have time to look at the LNRS document, which I appreciate is huge, you will see we have an action which is G to improve awareness on sensitivity of sites and habitats to increased access. So that's in there, and there's a definite action point to manage that issue. So absolutely spot on. It is a real issue and it is recognised. We're not looking to set up PFI agreements. This is more nature finance. It's a very different approach to that kind of arrangement. So there's an awful lot of work going on around how deliverables like carbon units or BNG units can deliver a revenue stream. And in some instances, it's far more efficient to get investment in to kickstart that process. If you get investment in and kickstart it from day one, delivering those outcomes on day one and pace the sales, because that's how BNG or carbon sales will work. If you pace the sales, you can get about 3 times the amount of revenue for delivering the same outcomes. So the finance element, not essential, but actually it will deliver far more security in terms of that project, knowing you've got the longevity of delivery and funding for it. But also the extra profit you take from that can then be ploughed into other projects that don't have saleable outcomes. So that could be ploughed into, if you didn't have a Section 106, those road improvements to protect that site that was discussed earlier. So that's how it would work. A large element of this, and we are seeing a lot of interest coming in from corporates who want to contribute on a philanthropic basis. And one of the challenges they have is actually having credible schemes that have some form of recognition and oversight, and we're looking to create the framework for those corporates to fund on that more philanthropic basis, which of course means there isn't a payback on those. So yeah, please be reassured, it isn't PFI in the sense that we've heard of in the news in the past.
I'm very glad to hear it's not PFI, thank you.
I find this quite interesting because it's almost on the ground floor for us, and you don't often get that, do you? And we're in a position now where we're all chasing new homes and houses, and we're all looking for brownfield sites, and staring at the space that may be a green space at the moment that might turn into a grey one. So there's a lot of concerns in our residence areas that we represent. I noticed in the presentation that you just gave that there was a number of sites like in Wolverhampton and Walsall where there was a lot of them, and Sandwell where there was very little. And I just wondered if you could kind of put some flesh on the bones in relation to why that happens to be the case. And I know from my own campaigning in my own area to make the Essington and Worley Canal into a local nature reserve, took nearly 14 years to do, almost as long as it took me to try to get the legislation through for the Metro. You might find that a bit of a shock. I certainly did. But in actual fact, they were both running together at stages. It's hard to get anybody to recognise what you've got, especially if it's been there for 230 years and it gets eroded bit by bit. We've managed to change that round. And I think it was quite interesting during this summer when we've had high temperatures. The cooling paces was along that cut, and that cut never used to have anybody walking along it now, but it has lots of people doing multiple things. So much so I'm getting battered because we haven't got better towpaths along the length of it, rather than just a bit around the commercial activities. But it's, for me, it's the way that people's views have changed. And like I said, I think we're at the front end here. It is probably maybe not the most exciting thing that will come before us as a West Midlands combined authority. But for me, I think it is, because the opportunity to kind of call a halt, put your foot on the brake. I've done a piece this week about having a deer in Wensfield. I think it's come down from the Cannock Chase and Pelsall area using the canal, the local nature reserve that we're forcing Walsall to do more about. But I think it makes the point, and I do see the opportunities, because now people want to get close to the canal because they're seeing it not as a danger. My old Wensfield Urban District Council spent a lot of money putting a metal fence with spikes on because we had 3 children die in the early years, in the 60s and 50s and that, to keep them away from the canal. It's the difference now. There is a difference. So I think it's very, very good, but I think you need to do a bit more on the comms side.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, so I think in terms of those projects and where they are, I think there are over 200 workshops and face-to-face meetings with stakeholders around the region. So those are project owners. So there has been quite an intensive program. What we can't necessarily do is create more projects if the project owners aren't working on them. So what I think is the next step is showcasing how we can deliver these kind of projects. There are some, I mean, the nature of the pipeline is that there are some that are really close and ready, and there's a little conveyor belt coming through, and we can support those projects and hold their hands to get them a little bit further along the conveyor belt, so they're at a much healthier place to attract investment. So that's the key of that conveyor. I think where the interesting link with the local nature recovery strategy is, the strategy provides more of a local level framework for what the ambition is. So hopefully that then starts to prompt the evolution of projects at the local scale that then can join the other end of that conveyor belt to get the support towards the funding. So I think that's the best way to describe it. We can only work with what comes to us, but by creating the strategy, actually we can start to shape the ideas really, really early on to help promote that.
Can I just come in on the comms point? I think that's really important, and making it clear how everybody can get involved and what this opportunity is for people across the region is really important. We've got a parallel community environment network, and once this strategy document is published, we're really keen that we turn it into something where it's clear on delivery. So we're going to work through the community environment network as well as other stakeholder engagement to actually take it from a strategy into a full-scale delivery plan. So yeah, I think the comms is really important around that, and we're working on that now.
Councillor Kettle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Looking at this and thinking of the urban forest initiative some years ago, which I was sceptical of, I'll be honest with you. But having seen how remarkable the growth has come over 20, 30 years now, it's fantastic in that we haven't been able to impact our urban environment with these patches of dense growth. And you see them along the, I remember once going over to Litchfield Barracks and going over the motorway or the toll road, and there were little stems, nothing, twigs. But you go across it now, and it's a few years later, and it's fantastic. Well, my comment is that we've seen the decimation of our bird life by about 90%, probably in my lifetime. And there are sparks of enlightenment coming through, and numbers are increasing here and there. But I think we've got to concentrate on berry producing, food producing trees that are of use to our nature: the oak, the beech, the elderberry, the blackberry bushes, and things like this that create a food chain for our nature. And funny enough, quite close to us recently, we've seen mint right down in Kinver. We've seen I have ring ouzels in my garden. A bit early, but they're there. I've had, very rare for some people. Some people have never seen a ring ouzle, And I must admit, one aspect of what we're trying to do is roadkill for me. If you do any distance, you soon realise how much of our wildlife is being killed on the road, What we can do about it, I don't know. But I fully support what you're doing. I'm in favour of but what I would ask and pray you do is look at the nature of, if where tree planting takes place, make sure it's a form of food source for our birds and our nature, so that there is something to eat. Because you go along the motorways and you think there's nothing to eat in these trees for miles. And I think we've made mistakes along the motorways. We should have mixed them and add a greater diversity of our trees. But other than that, fully support you.
No, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, they're all really, really great points. And yeah, those thoughts are very much sort of integrated into how we talk about habitat improvement and creation, even in the urban setting, how we can create little and often. We might not create big areas, but we can create those patchworks, those stepping stones. So yeah, all those points, hopefully you'll see will be embedded. And what we can do through having the strategy is educate and provide the information, the support and the evidence to help people on that journey. So I think it's a really positive way forward. So thank you. Really good comments.
I'd like to draw this to a close now, but I think we've got two recommendations. One is this needs really good communications. And secondly, I'd like to pick up Councillor Kettle's point. We've got lots of houses being built on Greenbelt. I think we want specific recommendations, guidelines on what would be good to plant on the green spaces that actually further this objective. Because developers all come in with, oh, I know what we'll do. We'll have a wildflower meadow, and I know what's going to happen to that. It won't get maintained. In 20 years' time, it'll have gone. So something that we can use in planning terms that actually might indicate of this is how you might do it on the development site, particularly where you're going from green to built on. But there's no reason really why you shouldn't do it on brownfield, because a lot of brownfield sites have got an awful lot of biodiversity on them.
So that's what they're doing in
Some
Spain,
guidelines,
isn't it?
yeah.
That's what they do in Spain, isn't it? They actually put orange and lemon trees around where they, what's the name? So yeah.
Now, I do sometimes wonder why we don't put apple trees in every new garden.
Yeah.
And instead of having these separate orchards, have it in the gardens, yeah, because they all self-pollinate.
Yeah.
But I'm not an expert. I'm happy to leave you to it. But some guidelines, I think, along the lines that Councillor Kettle was talking about, I think would be helpful. Are we comfortable with that?
Yeah. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you. So we've now got two linked items. There's item 8, which is a short report by Sharon on where we are with housing development. Then there is a private section of that, which is commercially confidential. My suggestion is that we have a quick look at the section 8 piece, and Sharon, if you could just highlight the key points on that, but we keep out of the big questions until we get into the detail on the back, because there's an awful lot of stuff that I know you can ask questions on in the back. So if we could spend just a little bit of time on the first piece and go for the back once we go into private session. Thank you.
I'll try to keep to the questions that have been in the previous ONS. These were raised at the previous ONS. One was.
Put your mic on.
I know, I was waiting for Councillor Kettle to come. So one was the two questions raised in the previous ONS, I believe. One is around delivery performance and local authority area, how many homes we have built in those areas or approved in those areas. And the other one was the application and approval rates. The 2.3 of the report details local authority homes and local authorities that have been approved by the CA's grant fund. I'm going into too much detail. The numbers are there. Total number is 9,954. Point to note is this report reflects back to end of June. There has been a data version in circulation now. That is the Q1 report, so it goes only back up to June, end of June. The second question was applications and approval rates. I believe it was around how long it takes, or what is the duration of time it takes for an application to be made and to be approved by the CA. I have limited this to this year, so from this financial year, from April onwards, when we go back in date. We have received 7 applications, out of which 4 are currently under consideration. 3 of them have been closed, and we are waiting for their information. That is the numbers, unless you want me to go into any detail at this stage or wait for the dashboards. Okay.
Councillor Scott.
Yeah, I suspect it might be that you want to pick up in the next section, but just in case it's not. In terms of those inquiries received, what are the sort of scales of the numbers of houses that are sort of being proposed in those?
Good question. Thank you, Councillor. I think it's we operate in a multiple way. It's market driven. So we have big schemes which come through, which have more than 300 homes, more than 400 homes in certain areas. And we also have 20, 30 homes, SMEs, SME type of building approval. So these are mixed. So I gave an example of Shrewsbury Road. That's putting out 30 units, 33 units is one of the applications that has come. We have received an application for 331 homes around at a similar time of this year. So there is a difference of numbers.
Shall we move into private session? So technically, we are excluding the press and the public in accordance with section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972. That the public and press be excluded from the meeting for the item of business related to item 12 on the agenda, because it's likely to involve the disclosure of exempt information, basically commercially sensitive information. So if we can have a show of hands for that, please. Thank you. And have we gone offline, have we?
For 2 minutes.
That's it, we're off the line.
Bear with me.